Hello everyone, welcome to ITLS Academy. In this session, we will be starting with the last session of the topic firearms and tool arms in forensic technologies. This is your mentor, Dr. Shamaita Basu. As I mentioned, this is the last part of firearms and tool marks since it's a very important aspect of forensic technology. So I actually covered it in 3 sessions. Okay, so in this session, we will be starting with the location of tool marks, which is again a very important aspect or a very important point to consider as far as forensic investigation regarding tool marks is concerned. Okay, so the nature of tool marks will depend upon the nature of the crime. If trees have been felled and stolen, axe marks may be found on the stems of the trees. The tool marks will be found at the point of entry on the locks, safe doors, and the almirahs of a house if it has been broken open. So, say for example, a house is there which is empty, no one is there, or maybe only one person is there, or maybe some elderly couple is there who is fast asleep. Okay, so in the middle of the night, some burglary, some robbery, some thefty has been occurred in that particular house. So the tool which that particular theft or the person who has conducted the robbery or burglary has carried, it will be having marks not only on the inside or not only on the location where the burglary has occurred, but also on different other spots, like say for example at the point of entry, means the lock door, the handle of the door, okay, the safe doors, the windows maybe, okay, the grills of the windows, okay, the almirahs, the cupboards, like that. Okay. Okay, so if telephone, telegraphic, electric, or traction wires were stolen, then the details of the cutting instruments will be found on the curtains at the scene and on the stolen property. Because whenever the thief is stealing some wires, some connections, okay, some gas pipes maybe, or as they are saying over here, telephone wires, etc. So they will be needing some sharp instruments which will be used to cut those connections or cut those wires. Okay, so in that case also the details of the cutting instruments will be found at the curtains at the of the crime scene, as well as on the stolen property. Okay, now the stolen parts of vehicles like hubcaps, headlight covers, etc. will carry impressions of nails or bolts. Any object coming in contact with a tool will be able to carry marks of that tool. So the moral of the story is basically told in the last sentence, that any object which will be coming in any kind of contact with that particular tool which is used for the theft or the robbery will be having some marks of that particular tool, will be carrying some tool marks belonging to that particular tool. So I will just highlight the last sentence over here for you. Okay. Okay, now moving forward. Now there are different types of evidence which can be submitted in the case of tool marks. Okay, what are they? There are various types of evidence submitted in tool marks cases, which include tools like bolt cutters, screwdrivers and chisels, scissors, knives and box cutters, pliers and wrenches, crowbars, tire irons, saws and hammers. So these are basically the list of the majority of the tools that can be found in the evidence of tool marks places. Okay, so I've just given some diagrams or images. Okay, I think these are most of the images which I have already showed you before in the previous sessions of firearms and tool marks. So now there are some examples of places and surfaces where tool marks can be observed during the investigation. Okay, what are they? Some of the places and surfaces where tool marks are likely to be found during the investigation are wire, chains, door, window frames, means the grills, sections of metal sheets, safes, human bone or cartilage, padlocks and doorknobs, bolts and locks. Okay. Okay, now coming to the analysis of tool marks. Now the analysis of tool marks is divided into several stages. Okay, so let's see. The analysis of tool marks is divided into several stages. As I said, observe, measure and explain the tool mark first. So the first stage will be obviously observing. Okay, because without observing you will not be able to get an idea about which tool has can have produced that particular tool mark. Okay, so observing will be the first point. Secondly, you need to measure. Okay, measure means how? Measure means how the tool mark is looking like. How much is the length? How much is the breadth? How much is the width? Okay, whether it is long or short, what kind of shape it is, what kind of color it is. These are the measuring parameters. Okay, and then you, after that, you will explain the tool mark. Okay, this tool mark may be occurred by this particular tool. Till then you are not sure, you cannot confirm. Okay, you cannot give a confirmatory explanation, but you can get an idea. You can have an idea. Okay, this tool mark can be produced by at least this type of tool, you can say. Okay, so first you need to observe, then you need to measure, then only you can explain. After that, what will be the second step? The second step will be take a photograph perpendicular to the tool mark. Very important. Important as in this word perpendicular is important over here, because if like you need to stand just perpendicular to the tool mark and then take the photo from exactly the top, because otherwise what will happen, otherwise the image will not be clear, because afterwards you have to like the future analysis or the future investigation you have to do with that image only, isn't it? As a forensic officer, as a forensic investigator, you cannot every time go and travel to the crime scene and then continue your investigation, isn't it? After you have just observed and located and seen the crime scene once, after that you need to go back to your office and do the remaining analysis, isn't it? So for that, photograph is your best friend in that case. So it's very important that you take the photograph in a proper manner. Okay, so I will just highlight the word perpendicular over here. Okay, so this creates a permanent record of the tool marks class and certain unique properties. Because I told you about the classification, the characteristics of tool marks. One is the class characteristics, one is the individual characteristics. So from the class characteristics, you can only, like, after studying the class characteristics, you can only have an idea about which type of tool has produced that tool mark. But only after you go, or only after you study in details the individual characteristics, you will be able to say that okay, this particular tool is responsible for causing the tool mark, isn't it? So there comes the importance of unique properties of each tool. The tool mark is then cast if the support on which it is positioned cannot be gathered as evidence. Okay, in many cases what happens, you cannot say, for example, there is a huge almirah where the tool mark is there, so it's not possible to take up that huge almirah and take it to your office or take it to an investigating center, isn't it? So in that case, what you need to do, you need the help of a cast. So you just cast the tool mark on that casting tray exactly in the manner that it has produced the original tool mark on the surface. Okay, the polymeric dental paste is commonly used to create this cast. Again, very important. What do you use as cast? Polymeric dental paste. That is the perfect material to be used in order to create the cast. The comparison procedure begins when a tool is discovered and its class features match those displayed by the tool mark. Means you have to match it, isn't it? The tool is usually seen and photographed. The tool is then used to make comparative tool marks on a soft material to avoid leaving excessive markings on the tool. Because if on the by the method of producing tool marks for investigating purpose, if you damage the tool, or if you produce extra dents or extra scratching marks, extra stray on the tool, then that will also go and hamper your uh, investigation, isn't it? Because you need to investigate not only the tool mark but also the tool itself, isn't it? So that thing you also need to keep in mind, that whatever you do, whatever casting or whatever extra marking you are doing, you need to do it on a soft surface, soft material, and you need to be careful that you do not make excessive markings or dents or scratches on the tool. The procedure of comparison is carried out using a comparative microscope. Okay, now I have given some case studies to make you understand the tool mark investigation in a more tool mark, not only tool mark as well as firearms tool mark, in a more vivid manner, in a more clear manner. Okay, so let's just see. Okay, so in a murder case, an accused pleaded that the this case study won. Okay, I will show you two. I will tell you about two case studies. So let's focus on the first case study first. In a murder case, an accused pleaded that the victim with a sword attacked him, and he in turn threatened the victim with a gun. So there are two weapons over here. isn't it? One is the sword and one is the gun. The sword was used by the criminal and the gun was used by the victim. The blow of the sword struck the barrel of the gun and it got fired, killing the victim. So it was basically an accidental killing. Like the criminal went with the intention to murder that victim, but actually the murder occurred accidentally while the victim was trying to defend himself. He pointed to the cut mark of the sword on the barrel. Uh, okay, he means the criminal, okay, the accused. He pointed to the cut mark of the sword on the barrel. The test hits were tried in the laboratory with the sword and the barrel. Now, test hits means whatever the accused is telling, he might be lying, isn't it? So, in order to be sure whether he is lying or not, the same act which had occurred in the actual scenario, in the actual crime scenario, needs to be reacted by the forensic investigators, just in order to see that whatever this person is telling, it can be true or not. Okay, so that is referred to as the test hits. The gun neither goes off nor leaves a cut mark on the barrel. On the contrary, means whatever the accused is telling has not matched. On the contrary, the sword itself got blunted. When the suspect was confronted with the evidence, he confessed to having created the marks with a kukri, which was verified to be correct. Based on this finding, the suspect was charged with a homicidal offense. Homicidal means when you are trying to kill someone. Okay, so basically, the moral of the story is that the accused was lying. He actually made those cut marks himself with the help of a kukri. And how he was caught? By the trial of the test hits which were run in the lab. And it was found that whatever he is telling is not true. Okay, then he was confronted and then he confessed. Okay, so that was case study 1. Now moving on to case study 2. So here what they are saying, the body of a girl was found in a jungle. She had been strangled with a thin plastic belt, one end of which had been cut off. The cut ends showed faint but clear striation marks left by the blades of the scissors which were found in the possession of the suspect. Means the scissor which was found with the suspect was actually used to cut the ends of the plastic belt with which the girl was strangled. The test marks made with the scissors on the belt produced similar patterns of striations, leading to the arrest and prosecution of the accused. Means how it was confirmed that that scissor is only the scissor which was used to cut the plastic belt. By again the test hits were done, test trials were done, and it was seen that it was producing similar cut marks or similar striations which was found on the plastic belt. Okay. Okay, now there are some criteria for identification of tool marks. What are they? Examiners are sometimes reluctant to present images of comparisons at trial for fear of opening the door for defense attacks where less than obvious agreement between stri exists and or where there is even apparent disagreement. So means even if the investigators or the forensic examiners are having relevant images to present, they are reluctant. Okay, they are not willing to, or they are not what to say, agreeing to present those image in the public court. Why? From the fear that it may lead to increased defense attacks. Okay, so these arguments can be overcome by simply pointing out that there will never be 100% agreement in these marks, because in a like anyhow there will be some kind of dispute over it, isn't it? Anything, not only in case of forensic investigation, any result, any interpretation, any investigation you were doing, you can never be 100% sure. Okay, even if 0.09% doubt is there, it will be there. Okay, nothing is as perfect as 100% in reality. So on this topic, two scientists, Miller and Maclean, they stated nothing duplicated in nature has been reportedly found to be exactly the same, and man has not been able to produce things exactly alike. Means whenever you are doing the test trials, you cannot exactly replicate the scenario that had actually occurred in the crime scene. Okay, so 100% similarity or 100% reacting is not possible. So there is the Association of Firearms and Toolmark Examiners, which is abbreviated as AFT. It allows for opinions of common origin to be made when the unique surface contours of two tool marks are in sufficient agreement. The definition of sufficient agreement varies somewhat depending on who is asked to define it. This means that often the examiner, having looked at a large number of tool marks, particularly known non-matches, means the tool marks known to have been made by different tools, is left to use his best judgment of sufficient agreement and identification. Studies of the number of consecutive matching stri have been conducted. Means no matter how much you are experienced, how much you are aware of the different tools and the different tool marks that are there, there will be some kind of dispute which will be going on in your own mind also as a forensic investigator. But no matter what, you have to come to a point of conclusion, and that point of conclusion is your sufficient agreement. Okay. Okay, now again we have two scientists, Biosotti and Murdoch. They have proposed a conservative criteria for identification. What are they? They divided into two criteria. Number one, in three-dimensional tool marks, means if there's a dent, there's an impression, that means it's a three-dimensional tool mark. It has three dimensions: length, breadth, and width. When at least three each or one group of six consecutive matching stri appear in the same relative position in an evidence tool mark compared to a test tool mark. So we have a evidence tool mark and we have a test tool mark. Okay, test tool mark means which we are performing, and evidence tool mark means which we have found in the crime scene. Okay, now if there are at least three or one group of six consecutive matching stri which are appearing in the same relative position. Okay, so same kinds of tool marks or striated marks, at least three or more than three, in the same position, in the relative same position. Again, it cannot be exactly the same position, isn't it? So relative position, both in the evidence tool mark as well as in the test tool mark. That is criteria number one. Criteria number two will be in two-dimensional tool marks when at least two groups of at least five each or one group of eight consecutive matching stri are in agreement. Okay, so eight consecutive matching stri will be there, among which at least one group or two groups if there are five consecutive matching stri. Okay, so then only it will be a sufficient agreement. Okay, now coming to the concept of databases, again something important when we are talking about these firearms and tool marks identification, because as I mentioned, I think I mentioned it in the previous sessions also, ki if databases are there, are readily available, then it makes the job of the forensic investigator much easier. Okay, the load is also reduced and the time required to come to a conclusion is also very less. Okay. Okay, so there are a number of useful databases that have been established and are available to the firearm or toolmark examiner. Probably the most significant is the National Integrated Ballistics Identification Network, which is abbreviated as NIBIN. I think this is again something that I have mentioned in the earlier sessions. So I will just highlight it. This is important. Okay. Now this system, this NIBIN, which stands for National Integrated Ballistics Identification Network, it contains a database of bullet rifling marks and cartridge cases base markings, which includes firing pin impressions as well as breech face marks. The system is networked with law enforcement agencies throughout the United States and is administered by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, which is again abbreviated as ATF. A for alcohol, T for tobacco, and F for firearms. Okay. Okay, now this ATF, it provides the equipment to the agencies that agree to support the program with staffing and resources. Means it will provide its own staff as well as resources, and it will support the program. According to the ATF, more than 6,200 hits have been logged as of 2005. 2005 means it's obviously a much older data. It's like almost more than 20 years. Okay. So this means bullets or cartridge cases entered into the system that have been found to match other bullets or cartridge cases already in the system. Means already various matches have been there, and this is the data of 2005. So just imagine what is the scenario or what is the present condition in 2024. Much more matches have been there now, isn't it? That is fired from the same gun. Many agencies, such as the New York Police Department, assign individuals whose job is to enter the bullet or cartridge case data from weapons seized on the street into the database. Because weapons randomly seized from random people or randomly seized from the streets, from public places, means it's something which is available to the public, isn't it? It is something which is available in the public domain, so they can be potential weapons used in burglary or theft, isn't it? So those guns or those firearms need to be included in these databases first and foremost, isn't it? It is here that so-called cold hits are generated. This system, though time-consuming itself, it still saves thousands of hours of manual searching that would have to take place when a bullet or cartridge case needs to be searched against previous submission. So basically, exactly what I said, the concept of database itself is time-saving. Okay, it makes it less time consuming, it makes it less tedious, okay, it makes it less easier. The workload is reduced to a huge extent on the officers, okay, so it's totally advantageous. Now, there are some other useful databases also, which include trigger pool data and general rifling characteristics. The general rifling characteristics, along with the incorporated cartridge case markings file, allow the examiner to predict possible weapons that could have fired bullets or cartridge cases. Future possibilities include the entering of bullet or cartridge case markings data from new weapons through cooperative agreements with firearm manufacturers. This would be similar to having a fingerprint file for all individuals from birth. So basically, it's kind of a what to say? It's kind of a storage. Okay, it's kind of a huge repository of all the different firearms and tools and guns, revolvers, pistols that can be used, that can be probably used as weapons in the crime scenarios. Okay. Okay, now last but not the least, I think we have come to the end of this session almost. So the future. Okay, whenever you are studying a topic, whenever you are gaining some knowledge regarding a topic, you should have, just as I always say, you should have a brief idea about the history, about the development of that particular topic or subject. Similarly, you should also have some knowledge about the future of that subject. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's see the future. The future of firearm and tool mark examination is directly tied to the technology of the firearms and tools that are being and will be devised. As the technology of these means, it will change, the future will change with the discovery of newer tools and newer guns, firearms. Okay, as the technology of these items changes, the methodologies used in their identification and comparison must also change, obviously, because the firearms that are present now will not be the same after 20 years or 10 years down the line, isn't it? So obviously the mechanism, the manufacturing process, the maintenance, the operation of these firearms and tools, if they change, then gradually their identification process, their comparison process will also need to change accordingly, isn't it? Firearms are already being developed that use electronic ignition rather than conventional firing pin or primer mechanisms. This eliminates the firing pin impression aspect of firearms identification. Obviously, if this primer or firing pin or ignition concept is totally removed from the the operation or the mechanism of action of these firearms, then obviously identifying these firearms on the basis of this primer marks will also be gone, isn't it? Caseless cartridges have been around since before the Civil War, but there now is renewed interest in them. Okay, continuing the future. Obviously, the markings which are typically utilized, like the extractor, ejector, breech face mark, firing pin mark, chamber mark, dents on the chamber, okay, these are not available if there is no cartridge case, because they are telling that we will be coming up with coverless or caseless cartridges. Okay, so usually the brass or nickel clad brass cartridge cases which are used nowadays will be gone. Alternative means of identification will have to be developed accordingly, obviously. The most probable changes on the horizon for firearm and toolmark examination will likely involve increased automation. A possible consideration would be the use of topographical analysis of tool marks and automated comparison. In this way, the quality and quantity of the marks could be related. The quality would be based on the degree of contour match of the marks, that is test versus evidence, whereas the quality would be evaluated as is already being done depending on the number of consecutive try. Means the quantity will be obviously dependent on the number of marks, isn't it? The number of striations, the number of compressions, the number of impressions that have been there. But the quantity will be depending on the automation or the degree of contour match. Okay, a combined degree of match might then be derived. Okay, combined degree of match means contour match as well as means quantity match as well as quality match, both will be done. Okay, so that is why they are referring to it as combined degree of match. A push has been underway for a number of years for certification of firearm and toolmark examiners through AFT, and in the future, universal endorsement of AFT certification may become a reality. So, if there is a universal certification system, then what happens? The entire thing will be centralized. Okay, means in every corner of the world, whenever there is some need of tool mark or firearm investigation, it will be a centralized thing. The officers, the resources, the staff, all will be coming from a centralized source, so that will be much more systematic, isn't it? So I think that's it. So we end the topic of firearms and tool marks investigation here. I think the next topic in this module of forensic evidences will be, I think, forensic odontology, which is again a very important topic. I will need another 2 to 3 sessions in that topic. So we will meet soon. Till then, thank you. Goodbye. Please like, share, and subscribe ITLS Academy. Thank you.